Hello! It's time for another edition of Mic Drop. And today we have a very serious subject. The Cambridge Analytica scandal that hit this past weekend. It has roused the industry. Got lots of consumers worrying about their data and privacy concerns and how much data Google or Facebook is sharing with everybody else. But before we get on to all that, let me kind of explain the situation for you. Let's take a trip back to 2014. A young Pharrell Williams was wowing the Grammys with his crazy cowboy hat. A kid in Cleveland, Ohio had raised $55,000 to cook potato salad. And more importantly, a Cambridge professor by the name of Alexander Coogan had just released an app called This Is Your Digital Life. And this was an app that was available on Facebook. And if you're familiar, when you're doing anything that kind of is linked with Facebook, whether playing a game or filling out a personality survey like this, you'll get like a little warning box that says this app may share or gather data from your profile, blah, 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 blah. And most people just ignore it and they go to play their little farm game. So this app was like that. It was gathering all this data in the background. People are taking these personality tests, telling a lot about themselves to find out. I'm not entirely sure what this one is, but I mean, you've seen things like, take this test and find out which Muppet you are. It's kind of like that. And so people were taking this test. It was gathering this data. But unbeknownst to them, not only was it gathering all of their personal data in terms of name, email, and then in things like the pages they liked, the posts they made, things, even in their direct messages, it was gathering that. But that's not the worst part. It was also gathering the same information for all of their friends. And so what Google was able to do was take this seed list of about 250,000 people who had taken this personality test, use that seed list to gather all of their other friends' information, and it ended up being over 50 million Facebook users that he got all this data for. And that in itself, at the time, wasn't illegal because he was with Cambridge. He was doing an academic, some sort of academic project, looking at how like friends relate to friends globally on Facebook, something like that. He was supposed to just take those numbers, use them academically. What he did, which was very bad, not good, he took that data and he brought it to a company called SCL, which stands for Strategic Communications Laboratory. And he sold all of this personal data to this company. And this company, their political arm, Cambridge Analytica, now took all of this data, combined it with an algorithm they had, and they were able to look at all this data and really create profiles on users, and they would know exactly what types of messaging to use with these users, what types of messaging they were susceptible with, how many times they needed to see these messages before they would change their minds. And so they took all of this data, illegally sold to them, illegally used, violating all sorts of Facebook rules at that point. So they used all this to create really accurate models, to kind of create these really targeted campaigns in Facebook and in other channels as well, to really hit people, really hit them with messages that would speak directly to them, speak to their fears, to their concerns, really incite them. And naturally, this of course happened in 2016 during the US election. I'm not here to get political. People have opinions one way or the other, whether it affected people or not. I'm of the opinion that it seems like a lot of this Facebook stuff, this advertising stuff, might have influenced it, but that's not the Jay Miller opinion. Don't get me wrong. But the point here is all that data was used to create really accurately targeted profiles, and but it was all done illegally. And so this is where Facebook steps in. This is where I think Facebook is the big wrong, and they, everything we keep on hearing about Facebook and its influences on the election, it seems they were behind the eight ball to move on any of this. And so this is another case where they were slow to move on this. They actually knew that the Cambridge Analytica was using this data incorrectly. They had reached out to them and said, they actually, back in 2014, when they found out how this app was working, they they changed their use policies. So they limited how much data third-party providers or third-party developers could pull from Facebook. And so once they did that, they said, hey, Coogan, you're supposed to delete all this data, send like an official notarized something or other, and they sent something notarized back saying they deleted everything. Problem, they didn't delete anything, and they sold it. to Cambridge Analytica. So you have this data that was supposed to have been deleted, still used, but Facebook never really followed up after they just said, they were asked, did you delete it? They said yes. Facebook was like, cool. And now, just this past weekend, I think it was The Guardian released the paper, released a story, a whistleblower who worked for Cambridge Analytica kind of explained the whole situation. And so Facebook suspended Cambridge Analytica now, like 2018, pretty late to the game. So it's a whole big mess. People are very incensed about Facebook and what it's doing with your data. And people are wondering, asking me as an advertiser, what does this mean for us as advertisers, as businesses? People, hate Facebook or leave Facebook. All this data, it is bad. I'm still here to say data is good. It's not really going to affect us as advertisers on Facebook. If you were a third-party developer who was relying on data that Facebook would share with you, maybe that will be affected because just based off of what Zuckerberg said yesterday, they're really cutting back that even more, the things that they will share with third-party developers. But advertisers like us, we get access to data anonymized. We're targeting more, like people who have interests or behaviors that we like, but we can't get it as pinpoint as what Cambridge Analytica was doing. Nor are we taking that data, saving it anywhere, and using it for other means other than running ads on Facebook. So I don't think it's going to affect us whatsoever. The delete Facebook movement, I don't think that's going to affect us at all. I don't think you're going to see a big, shift in Facebook users. The fact of the matter is it's the largest social platform in the world, and even if a bunch of people delete it, where else are you going to go? The third biggest social platform is Verizon. So Verizon doesn't have a big ad platform for us to use. So I don't think it's going to affect us whatsoever. What could happen eventually is maybe things get a little stricter on Facebook's side in terms of what you can and cannot target. I don't think it's going to affect us immediately, but I think it's something down the road. If you want to be thinking ahead, just look to over in Europe, they had this GDPR, which is, I think, like General Consumer Data Protections Rights or something, and so it's making it advertisers in the EU are going to have to do a lot more in terms of notifying users when they're cooking them, notifying them what they're using that data for, and always giving the user an out. And so if you look to the EU and the GDPR and what people have to do over there, you might want to start looking at your own stuff and think maybe we should start doing this here, because I can easily see that being ported over to the US as rising consumer concerns come for all data privacy. So think of that, but don't think that Facebook is dead, that Facebook ads aren't going to work anymore. Facebook is still very alive and well. Ads pretty much the only place you can go, or the biggest place to go, to place media ads or social ads right now. So hopefully that kind of explains a little bit about what this Cambridge Analytica thing is. You can go to a dinner party this weekend and speak very intelligently to it. And you can also allay anybody's fears about Facebook and wanting to delete it and all that stuff. So consider this mic dropped.